Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we're going to be talking about my epiphanies from watching teen television with my tweens and what it means about your sex life. I could relate really any fucking thing back to your sex life. That is my special talent. So before we get to that, please do subscribe. The next one, whatever it will be a subscription one, and the previous subscription one was about your wife fantasizing about other people, but I also have when you defer working on the relationship until you have time, but then you add more to your plate, and the oral sex on women one, and like 80, close to 85 others. You're replicating your parents' marriage and you don't even know it. And if you want to know your wife's full potential for love, check out her relationship with the kids, especially her favorite. That is a mind opener on its own, guys. Okay, so I was watching my so-called life, which of course everybody should remember if they were born anywhere near around when I was in 1981. It was the big Claire Danes one. It was only on for one season. Anybody who's female will know what I'm talking about, but males may not. Anyway, it was a teen drama, and it was this coming of age story like they all are, of what teens like to watch. She's in high school, has a crush, she's thinking about whether to have sex, her friends are confronting issues of, drug use and school issues and peer issues and like all of these different things. So what was interesting, and also what was interesting is that as I was watching it, I haven't Googled this just because I don't care enough, but it seemed to replicate and be the template for another teen drama that I had watched, which is a modern one with my daughter called Never Have I Ever. So in Never Have I Ever, it seems like it was it's like a South Asian girl, and it was by Mindy Kaling, and it was a really good show, and it seems to be based on my so-called life, or maybe everything is kind of similar, but this one really seems to have an overlap. But what was so interesting is we watched the whole thing of Never Have I Ever, and it was the same kind of thing. A teenage girl is figuring out issues of like having sex and, partying and grades and like, all these teenage themes. It was a funny show. You should totally watch it with your kids if they like it, if they're that age that they would be interested. But so I compared it though to watching the original My So-Called Life, which came out in the 90s. And in My So-Called Life, by the second episode, we think that the dad's already cheating on the mom, possibly. The parents have a fight, and then they make up the fight in bed. Of course, you don't see them have sex, but you see he starts to kiss her while she's crying, and then they end up in bed, and you don't see that, but you see them laying there, his shirt's off, and you could see that they just had sex, and it was makeup sex. This was nowhere in the 30 years later, Never Have I Ever. In fact, I don't want to do spoiler alerts, but the mom doesn't ever have sex. So there's reasons, but there would be equal plot reasons for her to have sex, but they just choose that she never does, and it's interesting, the difference. And I've seen this in a lot of different shows. There was the old Degrassi and then the newer Degrassi, and then, the old 90210, where also, the parents, they have sex. This is like a storyline as they interact with swingers, and even when I'm going back, Growing Pains and Family Ties, you knew that those parents were having sex. You knew it, and they were kind of always kissing. The kids would be like, ew, mom and dad. You don't really see that stuff as much anymore in popular media. And that's not only because, because I don't because I'm not an aficionado of it, but it's also my kids' reactions. When they see it, it's very different than the stuff that they that they think is going to happen. They're surprised that there would be a storyline about the parents, versus that it just sticks to the kids. So there's two issues that are interesting. The first is I remember growing up in a pretty dysfunctional family with a marriage that was not good. I remember looking to these as models of what a happy marriage was supposed to look like between adults. So probably I was more tuned than maybe the average kid to the storylines between Jim and Carol on 90210, or, the parents in My So-Called Life, because it was interesting to me. It was new information, and the information was very obviously that happily married or even unhappily married adults have sex. That is a default thing that they do, and it's a way that they make up, and it's a way that they derive joy in their day-to-day life. It's a way that they come together. Like there were a lot of scenes of adults, like parents kissing in the kitchen and then the kids walking. More scenes than I see in TV now. When it's really focused primarily on the kids and there's really no thought of adult sex. And in fact, even if you were to think about it or let's say bring it up, to discuss with your partner, they would say, well, kind of almost, they might say, well, that's gross. Like, why should something that like our kids watch have to do with adults having sex? Like, that's basically disgusting. And it's not. Because at the age where people are struggling with these ideas about whether to have sex, which is a key storyline or should be in any teen drama, because that's what teens think about, is when to have sex. That is not all they think about, but it's certainly not just like hobbies in school. They're not neutered. That is that's when your hormones are raging. So of course they're thinking about when they should have sex, but it's interesting how they are going to make those decisions in the absence of role models that of parents that are happily partnered and have an active sex life, or at least the illusion with an A, to a happy sex life, because they're cuddling and they're kissing, etc. And it's interesting because rates of married sex have dropped and there are more sexless marriages now and fewer people that have there are fewer people that have sex and a lower frequency of married sex. And people attribute this to smartphones, but that's one of the reasons. But there's also in general, people have become super obsessed with the kids. And I talk about this all the time, the child-centered marriage, And so if there is a drama about teens, now it's all about the teen. It's really all about the teen. And if there's anything about the parent, I really don't want to give you any spoilers for Never Have I Ever, but a lot of the mother's decision making is based on the kid, more so than in the dramas from our youth. And I use our, assuming that you guys are in my cohort or certainly not teens. Teens are not listening. So in the absence of understanding or even thinking that there should be kind of this balance between the needs of the parents and the needs of the teenage children, everything becomes overweighted toward what the teen needs and wants and thinks. And it's almost like they're in a vacuum. They're not embedded in a larger family where the needs and interests of the main people in it, the parents, the ones who are supporting this whole endeavor and whose relationship created the whole family, the parents are beyond peripheral. And, popular media is it both, it's bidirectional with real life. So the child-centeredness of the times creates child-centered popular media, which then, perpetuates the idea that this is what's normal. And nowadays, it's so interesting because people and children are having sex later and later. So it used to be that the average age of sex was, 16, and now it's 18, or I don't remember, but there was a change over time, over the past 30 years. And it's funny because invariably, if you talk about this in, I'm gonna Google that because I feel like that would be interesting. Hold up. All right, so that's pretty cool. That's like when Eva used to stop time in that show where she was half Martian, speaking of popular media from our youth, because, I just did a little internet research and y'all, didn't even have to skip a beat, really. So listen, this is something I just got from the CDC. So this is 2017, but, this is a Google search I did in 3 minutes. The 2017 National Youth Risk Behavior Survey, YRBS, paints a promising picture about the drug and sexual behaviors U.S. high school students report. But the findings leave room for concern, especially among groups of young people who report multiple health risks. The health of our youth reflects the nation's well-being, said CDC Director Robert R. Redfield, MD. In the past decade, there have been substantial improvements in the behaviors that put students most at risk for HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. However, we can't yet declare success when so many young people are getting HIV and STDs and experiencing disturbingly high rates of substance use, violence, and suicide. Student sexual behavior. In 2017, there was another decline in the percentage of high school students who report that they have ever had sex and those who have had 4 or more partners, the lowest level since the CDC began conducting the survey in 1991. So it declined. So the self-reported data show that students who have ever had sex declined from 47.8%, nearly half in 2007, to 39.5% in 2017. So that's super interesting, right? So this is in all of high school, and high school is, includes all the way up to age 18, when you're pretty much, an adult in most ways. You could certainly be, you could be in the military. So the point is, like, fewer kids are having sex at all. This is not, unpopular opinion, right? I mean, this is not necessarily great news, like the way that they say and they herald it as some marker of just great news just across the board. Why? People have great sexual experiences with high school sweethearts. Sure, if like something happens and you're drunk at a party that you regret, that's going to be bad. I get that. However, most people that had a high school sweetheart, a long-term relationship, long-term relationships in high school, 6 months, something, report that those are real positive sexual experiences. And I'll tell you, I see people later in life, particularly men, who really very much regret that they did not have those high school experiences that would have taught them about women, because you learn about women pretty well if you are in a monogamous long-term high school relationship, because you are so thrilled to death to be having any sexual contact. You are just a little absorbent sponge. You learn better at that age. You're going to end up pretty good in bed. So the point is here that the sexlessness of the adults, which you can Google how sexless marriages have risen over time. I don't need to do that. And the lower frequency among married partners of having sex, it starts early now, like it's also in the teenagers as well. And, I don't know. It's not just unfailingly good. I'll tell you that. Certainly not among adults who are very unhappy and come into counseling at even starting from when I was in private practice in 2009. The rates of sexlessness that I see in marriages of just the average couple coming in has risen, significantly, to a point that it's something that I deal with all the time. So overall, what I'm saying is this: if you want to show your child, and this is where this was all going, people. If you want to show your child a healthy, intimate relationship, it's probably the only one they're gonna see. And it used to be all over media, and it used to be a known thing that adult married people had sex. It is not like that now. It is not like that in reality. It's not that in the media. And people are terrified to in any way traumatize their child by basically showing them any indicator that they have an intimate life. This is like the worst possible reasoning. Your child, if they are like most children, teenagers, wants to be engaging in an intimate relationship at some point, and where are they going to get the template from that if everything is so sterilized, and they're treated more like infants? Like the reaction nowadays, if you would say, oh, like, have you ever, talked about sex, like with your teenager, like most people have really not, except to, and I did a podcast about that, to instill fear, to say something like, you got to watch out. There's STDs. You could get pregnant. Guys are going to take pictures of you and put them all over the internet. You can't trust anybody. If you don't love somebody, if you don't know that you want to be with them, then why would you entrust your body to them? And they could hurt you, and they could hurt you physically, and they could hurt you mentally, and they could hurt you emotionally. This is like the norm of talks about sex. In the rare cases that people directly do talk about sex, is really focused on the negative. And of course, it isn't a task for the average person who feels fairly inarticulate and awkward around these matters to say something like, well, your father and I have a wonderful sex life. Like, listen, like I'm no fool. Like, I don't feel like you're going to like be sitting down, at Starbucks with your 14-year-old saying something like that. And if you did, they would probably be like, ew, stop, because it's boundary crossing. However, if they were to see evidence of that, that goes into their mind more than you having some like weird, awkward talk with them. Sure, you can say sex is a wonderful thing between people who care about one another. And I've written out like what to say, and I could just tell you right now, because I have you listening, captive audience. Sex is a wonderful thing between people who care about each other, and you can make decisions about what that means to you. And sex is interesting and fun and lovely and whatever adjectives you want to put in. Also, be careful, because if you're a sensitive person, you sleep with somebody and then the next day you hear they sleep with somebody else, you might get your feelings hurt. Also, of course, use a condom and this, that, the other, the protection side. But lead with the positive, right? But anyway, that's an aside. You won't even really have to go so granular on that if they know that they're seeing an intimate relationship between you two, between the parents, or in the case that you're divorced, with the parent and the new partner, if there is one, where there's touching and kissing and, hugging, and you go into your room and shut and lock the door sometimes, and they can't always come into your bedroom because you may be doing adult things and the door is locked to indicate that would be a sign, So if the kids are not getting from the media any real idea of what married intimate relationships are supposed to look like, which increasingly I believe they are not, then who do they have left? It's only you. So use that information wisely and show them that adults during the day find physical comfort in one another and enjoy physical intimacy, and that is something to look forward to as a good part of being an adult, is that you get to be in a romantic relationship with a partner and build a life together, a romantic relationship. Because if your whole relationship is about driving the kids to their activities, and then talking about money in serious voices, and then planning the next vacation in which you do absolutely nothing besides help the children see yet another college, well, then what do they think about being an adult? They think that it sucks, and I'll tell you they really do, because the young adults that I talk to in therapy frequently don't want to have kids because they're like, man, my parents' life sucked. I mean, they were like nice, they were good to me, but I don't want to sacrifice my whole life for kids like they did. Is this a sort of philosophy that you want to transmit? No. So it could be a wake-up call picturing your own child thinking something like that one day. Anyway, hope you found this interesting. I always find the sociological ones pretty interesting. I may be in the minority, but then again, I am the creator of all things Dr. Psych Mom shows, so, I could talk about what I want. And but really, I mean, it's interesting. Go back and watch some of the shows that you used to watch as a kid in the 90s or in the 2000s and see how different it is. It's such a mind fuck. It's like super interesting to do that with your partner. That would be an assignment I would give you if you were my clients, and you might as well be. So you are for these 20 minutes. So I'll talk to y'all soon. And you're actually not. Like that's I don't know if that passed some like disclaimer legal thing. You're not my clients unless you sign, the forms that say that you are. But you are people that I care about. So listen and do the assignments that I tell you to do if you want to get some more value out of these. Watch one of those shows and discuss with your partner. And I'll talk to y'all soon.